Hello and welcome to Karoo Ramblings. This is quite a first, doing a little road trip video. We're going to the George Car Show and we're currently at the Engine 1 stop on the N2, cooling off and waiting for a friend who's following us. Let's see how this goes.
The plan was to take our 50-year-old cars on a 5-day road trip along some of the Western Cape's busiest roads to the George Old Car Show 2025. This yearly event is one of the biggest classical and vintage car shows in the country, held on the expansive grounds of the Eden Technical High School in George. Some Crankhandle Club members have made it a yearly group event, and ever since getting my first classic, indeed my first car, I wanted to join in on the fun. Our route there would be over 3 days, as the journey is definitely part of the fun. We would spend the night at a friend's farm near Botrefier, the next day travel from there to Gouritsmond Nature Reserve to stay another night, and finally then on to George.
Karoo is a fairly stock standard 1972 Beetle with a 1600cc twin-port engine, 15-inch wheels, the original 165x80 size. She was resprayed recently by a previous owner. I've only had her just over a year, but she's brought a lot of confusion, and British engineering has finally caught up with German. Varying quite a lot, with him having recently rebuilt his engine, and me doing a lot of things including an oil change and adjusting the valve clearances and other service items. I'm definitely looking forward to this trip quite a lot.
I had recently been fairly concerned about the engine overheating, especially on long trips and hills, which is why I recently installed an RPM gauge and temperature monitor. This trip would be a test of Karoo's engineering, and these gauges helped me worry the entire drive instead of just at stops.
Yeah, I'm already in third. I'm probably going to stay there.
What RPM do that?
3,000, doing 80.
Oh, that's exactly the same as me.
Yeah. That's quite fun.
You got a little bit of smoke coming out the back there. I don't know if that's black or white, but it's something. I think it might be rich.
Hey, almost at the top. What a view. And she's doing it in third. That's quite an aesthetic with the clouds.
Oh yeah.
Fangos off in sunlight. That must be Howick. Lovely overcast weather. As far as I know, the car's going well. Don't want to look too closely.
After a short while, we arrived at the farm to meet up with the others over a lekker braai and stay the night. It is situated in the Botrefier Valley against a thick mountain of fynbos. Here's the Mini and the Beetle, and some of the other cars joining us on the road trip. Lovely 1937 Chev. Naturally, more cars turned up. The theme of the show this year is British cars, and what cars these giant Bentleys are. Anyway, so of course, we had to have some fun with the farm bike as well. Later that night, our hosts brought out one of their older cars to show off the recently restored acetylene lamps. These work by using drips of water onto calcium carbide rocks, a reaction that produces acetylene gas, which just needs to be piped and lit in front of a reflector to create comparatively good headlights.
A good paraffin lamp will give you more light.
What a beautiful morning. We'll be heading out shortly in that direction, down to Stanford and eventually Bulgarsdorp.
Shouldn't they be sticking their hand out? They don't have indicators.
Filling up with petrol and harness. Some massive Bentleys. Little Karoo over there. Petrol station visits became a regular feature of the trip. The Bentleys have massive 6-litre engines and often needed to stop to slake their thirst. We travelled surprisingly fast for a bunch of 50 to 90-year-old cars, generally 100 to 115 kilometers an hour, only dropping to 80 on some hills. Making a pit stop at Mareiki's pub in Baartskeersbos. Lovely little town just sort of draped across the main road. And there's the Bentley following us most of the way. They weren't lying about the portion sizes.
Oh yes, please.
Let's get them leaving.
what started it.
I know there's an Elam. There was a Moravian church in Elam, but maybe that's it. That's a lovely little town. I don't think there's much going on.
Again, the ease that our older cars got up to the speed limit is sometimes surprising. The Bentleys probably less so because of their tuning and engine size. Being stuck behind any of the three meant having a lungful of rich, half-burnt fumes, and I joked we could refuel on the go if we had something to catch the exhaust gas in.
Quick pit stop to fix a fender that's come a bit loose. Thankfully nothing mechanical. The third Bentley and the Chev have carried on. In the distance there will be the Swellendam Mountains. In the meantime it's just rolling grain fields. Karoo's going well. The oil light comes on at idle, oil pressure light, but apparently that's normal for travelling at highway speeds. Very welcome sight, some mountains again after rolling hills, and coming into Swellendam now. See how far the river is. Pretty good.
Woo! Which river is this?
The Breda River.
Okay.
Duration update, we are currently doing 35 behind part of a combine harvester. There's another tractor towing another part of it in front of that truck, and looks like we'll be here for a while unless I can get past.
We pulled into Buffeljag's Rivier for more fuel and met an eligible car for the Crankhandle Club. We were about to leave when
Yeah, well, look here, the brake is the car you push the starter. There's a problem. Okay? Let's do this thing. Look, there's power. Push the starter. Oh, shit.
Look at them all crowded round the British engineering.
something had gone wrong with the charging system or the battery of the older Bentley. After some deliberation, we all got together to push it, which got it running, and we could be on our way again.
Like a quilt, bed sheet.
If this is meant to be a documentation of the journey, so far that car's fender's broken, but it's held together with cable ties.
Yeah.
So
And the burgundy Bentley in front had trouble starting at the garage. Had to push start.
did it really have to be push started?
Did, yeah. Well, the battery was at 12 volts, which it should roughly be. The moment they turned the lights on, it dropped to 1 volt. So
Ah.
it had no power to either charge, to
Start,
the start
charge,
motor
yeah.
or the ignition.
So it's going well. Yeah. We've been completely fine.
Yeah, apart from the oil pressure light coming on at idle, coming into towns.
Yeah.
It's really hard to push the brake and the accelerator pedal at the same time intentionally.
At Heidelberg, we stopped at a country member's house and took over the entire road as a workshop. Parties gathered around the cars for en route repairs, welding and grinding fender brackets, electrical fiddling, wheel removal, and more.
Do you get hit by the bees? Oh.
We just check
some chicken noise here on my driving side front wheel. There seems to be a grinding noise.
This is now the road to Groningen, off the N2. Also brand new territory for me. Just see the sea in the distance. Never been here, should be fun. Kind of lost most of our group. There's a Harvey and at least one Bentley behind us, and then everyone else I think is just pushed off, and one may even be there already.
Driving fast to catch up did take a toll on the engine when we stopped at a crossroads to wait for the stragglers. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. We arrived at the nature reserve Chorikwa, where we joined for the night with another group going to George. The Fetour would drive their veteran cars to George the next morning, but needed some extra people to fill out their bookings and provide extra drivers. And so we were able to join in at this fancy place.
Someone hold on to Jeremy. You know
We were quite tired this evening and no footage is available of the evening or supper. The next day we set off on the final stretch to George with the zebras out to say goodbye. Our group split up this morning as drivers were needed for the backup vehicles to the Fetour, and the Bentleys and Chev wanted to join them at the wine farm. The Mini and us headed on a new road past Johnson's Post to the N2 and Mossel Bay. It was forecast to be a hot day and we both tried to drive more gently, glad for the shorter distance to travel.
Yeah. Little gravity.
Let Jeremy. Oh, I guess we're going to do that. I mean, we'll have to stop before getting on the road.
Yeah. Stopping at a Midas for oil and bits and pieces. Found a friend. Jeremy is just getting some things for his Mini as well. And we're about to head off as well.
A side note for any car people travelling through Mossel Bay in the near future, do yourself a favour and stop at their Midas. The prices are so much better than the ones in Cape Town, and we found some tools which are hard to find there as well. I'd been driving the Beetle this whole trip with something called the tennis ball trick, where you lodge a tennis ball under the boot lid, and that's supposed to allow more airflow to the engine and thus more cooling. Very good for longer, hotter road trips. This seemed to work well for the trip, with temperatures about 5 to 10 degrees cooler, but it was still a very welcome sight and a relief to finally pull into George.
We are finally at George, resting for a bit. There's a number of old cars all around. There's us.
Yes, you are.
Little bit.
The show had far too much to try cover in this video. Fields and fields of cars, and despite having the entire day there, I didn't get to see every one. A vintage tractor group was there. Lots of shiny MGBs. A selection of Beetles and other air-cooled cars. And of course, a few rooms of toy cars. Many minis. And some jumble stalls. Throughout the day, parades of themed cars would be interviewed, in groups such as vintage, German or British cars, for example. Lastly, there was a fast-paced auction of some cars from various estates or ones that people wanted to sell. This time round, none of our group bought anything, but there were some lovely cars on offer. What an amazing time and trip. We headed off to relax and bride, tired from the full day at the show. Looking forward to slowing down, resting, and enjoying some quiet as dusk settled upon a peaceful night. That is, until the stock cars.
Joining onto the N2 now, leaving George. Truly splendid weather for driving in an open-top Bentley. Hi, Arnie.
Okay, we've got a bunch of muskrats to catch.
Yeah. Hunt them down.
Yesterday I realized on the trip we lost one of our exhaust baffles. It should look something like that, although that one should be further inside. Karoo has not been unscathed, but here we are at engine one stop. There's some lovely old cars. I don't know if this was arranged, but they're all probably on their way back.
On the road again. Next stop will probably be Buffeljacht for petrol, and then see which way everyone splits off or continues. Yeah.
This would be interesting. I'm currently traveling just over 110 down a lovely straight stretch. Zoom in a bit. But our RPMs at the rev counter is only 3,000. A bit hard to see with the light. Go a bit closer. Yeah, there's 3,000. So there's plenty more to get to 120, 130. Beetles generally recommended red line is 4,500. That's plenty to get to their book speed, top speed of 130.
At last we were close to home. The last half back was just us in the Mini and mostly uneventful apart from some ignition cutting out issues on the Beetle and of course lots of roadworks. We travelled about 1,140 kilometres in total, and this last stretch of Clarence Drive before coming to the outskirts of Cape Town was an incredibly welcome sight. Savouring the last of the open roads and looking back on the fun of the trip, we were still glad to be almost home.
Right, well, we're back in Cape Town, as you can tell by the drivers. There's either clueless Varleys, their GP number plates, who don't know where they're going, take 3 right turns while remaining on the same road, or it's the Cape Town drivers who are fuss on the slop. And I can't drive 60, my engine does better than that. I'm barely cooling it good enough at 60. And then these speed limit things and keep to this side of the road things. None of that in the countryside.
We've got the equivalent of cabin fever happening here already, but it's city fever. There's too many people. Can we go back?
We will have to make a plan for that. Stay tuned for more.
Yeah, there's gotta be another chapter.